You're listening to Procurement 6, the weekly podcast from the team at Art of Procurement that summarizes this week in procurement in just 6 short segments.
Hi there, I'm Philip Eidson, and today is Friday, April 21st, 2023.
6.
I received in the mail this week a copy of Jonathan O'Brien's latest book, Sustainable Procurement, A Practical Guide to Corporate Social Responsibility in the Supply Chain. And I pulled this week's tip of the week directly from Jonathan's book, and it's on the topic of building the business case for sustainability. Jonathan separates the business case into must-dos, good-to-dos, and want-to-dos. Must-dos are compliance and preservation related for regulatory and risk mitigation reasons. Good-to-dos are considerations that ensure at a minimum you do not harm the people or the planet, supporting shareholder demands and supporting growth or competitive advantage strategies. And finally, the nice-to-do elements of a sustainability business case support the creation of social and environmental value, because you are a good corporate citizen and supporting stakeholder and most often internal stakeholder demands. This is a great place to start if you need to build a business case for sustainability, from the program level down to scoping and supplier selection considerations.
5.
In this week's podcast, Kelly was joined by Yatin Anand, who is Principal and Procurement Leader at KPMG, and Michael Van Keulen, better known in procurement circles as MVK, who is a Chief Procurement Officer at Cooper. The conversation focused on how procurement teams can build resiliency. Kelly asked MVK how the possibility of recession is coming into executive-level thinking and impacting procurement's priorities.
Yeah, I think we always say we hope for the best and embrace and plan for the worst. I think that's what a finance person does. So I still have that in my brain. I think that a recession is inevitable. I think governments have just the free money and the cost of capital, et cetera, over the past 24 months wasn't where it should have been. It's easy to say that hindsight, right? But I think we have to go through some pain, and I think we're going to experience that over the next 12, 18 months. I think what we can do as procurement is just to focus on what you can control, which is your own 4 walls, your relationship with your suppliers, understand what goes on with your suppliers, understand their finance structure. Are they reliant on external capital? If they are, let's talk about that. Optionality, building optionality in your supply chain. I highly encourage every practitioner out there to think about what if scenarios, run a digital twin of your supply chain, whether you do that digitally or in an Excel spreadsheet as I used to before the technology was there. But just brace yourself, hope for the best. We're all positive thinkers, at least I know I am. But I think we should plan for some pretty painful times where top line growth is just not as easy as maybe it was in the years past, and that's fine. We still need to run the business, and let's just step up and lead from the front.
Building optionality and stress testing your category strategies is something that we believe is a key value lever for procurement and one that really elevates procurement's impact.
4.
You've heard us talk about the idea of 10x procurement over the past few months, and this week we published a new white paper that shares our thoughts on the 6 key principles that are drivers of 10xing the impact of procurement. Now, one of those principles is to embrace an entrepreneurial mindset. We often talk about procurement as an internal partner, and our popular Procurement Inc. white paper series is all about positioning procurement as a service provider, because that's what procurement ultimately is. To be successful in this model, procurement must be entrepreneurial, or in the context of working within the organization itself, intrapreneurial. That entrepreneurial spirit is all about being positive. It's about being creative when solving problems, but it's also about accountability. When the business doesn't follow procurement's established policies and procedures, procurement should reflect and find ways to improve. Now, procurement will then create incentives for the business to work with them willingly, growing procurement's reach in the same way that any successful business owner must also achieve. The paper is available to download without the need for an email address at artofprocurement.com/resources or by clicking the link in the show notes for today's episode.
This is Procurement 6 from Art of Procurement. To get notified every time an episode is published, go to artofprocurement.com/subscribe. 3.
Analytics firm Everstream recently published their 2023 forecast for the greatest risks to the supply chains around the world. The top 5 risks that they cited are, first, delays and unfulfilled commitments from China-based suppliers. Second, the impact of inflation specifically for any materials or services provided by European-based suppliers. Third, investigators finding ESG violations in sub-tier suppliers. 4, cybercriminals will hit one of your suppliers with a ransomware attack. And 5, a small business bankruptcy halting production at one of your suppliers. We discussed earlier in today's podcast the importance of stress testing your strategies, and Everstream's report, which again is available to download at the show notes page, provides some real-world examples of what risks you can stress test against.
2.
I always enjoy reading vendor co-founder and CEO Ryan New's regular LinkedIn postings where he provides data on what the top software purchases are that are being run through the vendor platform. It's a great insight into what is hot and what's not. Now, the team at Vendor have taken that concept and turned it into a quarterly, free-to-download, and there's no email required for this, SaaS Trends Report. So the top 5 categories in Q1 of 2023 of software purchases are CRM, cybersecurity, project management, application performance monitoring, and digital analytics. The 2 highest ticket prices, Microsoft and Salesforce, and 2 emerging stars, Drata and SalesLoft. Now, if you feel like you're paying more in 2023, you're not alone. According to the report, average SaaS pricing has increased by 23% just in Q1 2023. Now, this is a really well put together report. There's lots of really interesting data points, so I highly recommend it for anyone who has an interest in SaaS. You can download directly via the link on the show notes page.
1.
Join us on April 25th, where I'll be sharing the virtual stage with Gordon Donovan and Matthew Montgomery from SAP, who are going to join us to discuss how C-suite executives view procurement's role in managing risk and why skill shortages may be part of the reason why procurement doesn't get more credit for their risk mitigation contributions. You can register for this webinar for this AOP live session and any other Art of Procurement event by visiting artofprocurement.com/calendar.
Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Friday at 6 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time. If you've enjoyed this pod, help us grow and tell your peers to search for Procurement 6 wherever they get their podcasts.